Hey, welcome here to a brand new episode. I'm your host, Dr. Faith Elizabeth Nanyonga. If you're listening in today, I'd like to take this minute to thank you for each and every time that you tune in to listen to me as I teach about career development and personal development. Your support is invaluable to me, and I don't take it for granted. If it's your first time here, welcome to the Frame Solution podcast. And if you'd like to be a fan, there are 3 ways you can support this show and spread the love. Every single share, subscribe count matters, so do not think your efforts go unnoticed. The first way you could support this show is by leaving a review in Apple Podcasts. Reviews not only make the world a better place for me, as the podcast gets to many ears, but also rank our podcast higher in the podcast charts. You can subscribe to this podcast so that you do not miss out any episode as they are released. And also, you could choose to be a guest on the podcast by sending in an email. The email address is theframesolutions@gmail.com. Thank you once again. Many of us will have seen a job advertised that sounds great, but then we held back from applying because we didn't think that we had all the experience that is needed to do the job, or we didn't tick enough boxes to convince the hiring manager that we were the right fit for that job. And this has held us back from getting the jobs that we deserve. So in today's episode, I'm going to talk about why good attitude is more important than having the experience. So without further ado, let's get right into the episode. Firstly, most employers choose passion over experience. So many jobs are filled basically by people who have the motivation, the passion and the zeal to do the job compared to people who have the experience. This is because many people who have the experience usually front it, like you come in and you're like, oh, I have the experience, I've worked with this. Many of those people usually are not willing to learn, and they are not like adaptable to new environments. So employers nowadays look for people who have the passion, who are willing to learn, who are willing to contribute to the culture of the organization, who are willing to work in teams, who have the can-do attitude. And these are the people who are taking up the jobs, even if they don't have the experience. Because if you don't have the experience, that means if you have a good attitude towards work, you're passionate, you're zealous, you have a positive vibe, what you're going to create is that you're going to add to the culture of the environment that you're going to work in, and you're going to be able to learn faster, you'll be able to take up new opportunities, you will be able to present yourself as a person who is willing to learn, and you have the can-do attitude. So do not shy away from applying for jobs that you think you don't have all the experience that it needs. But if you can demonstrate to the hiring manager that you have what it takes to learn, you have what it takes to take up new opportunities, you are able to own up to your mistakes, you will be the right fit for this job. Secondly, employers value positive attitude towards work. How they value it is that they know that this positive attitude it's going to contribute into creating a conducive environment for work, for you as the employee and for the rest of the team that you're going to work with. A positive attitude means that you are willing to take up opportunities as they come. It means that you can easily listen to instructions when you're given instructions from your managers or your seniors. It means that you're willing to own up to your mistakes in case you make a mistake. It means that you have the learner's mentality, that you are willing to take up new opportunities and you're willing to learn from your failures and also advance as you go on in your career. Employers are looking for people who can add to the culture of the organization. I've mentioned this while I was explaining the first point, but what it means is that they want people who are going to work in a team. When you're getting employed in many organizations, you're not going to work alone unless it's a startup or it's an organization whereby they're just still building it. But if you're getting employed into an established organization, chances are you're going to work in a team. And to work in a team, you have to have a positive attitude. Imagine working with someone who is always negative, who is always complaining, who is always like having bad vibes. You're not going to enjoy your workplace. Actually, you will even dread going to work. But if you have a positive attitude, that means you create a conducive environment for your fellow teammates. You will be able to enjoy your work, and you'll be able to even be more creative because your attitude is optimistic. Hey, you asked and I listened. I've designed for you a resume fundamental. The Resume Fundamentals is a document that you'll need to craft a resume that sells your skills and showcases the best that you have to offer. In this document, I've designed in such a way that I let you understand what a resume should contain. I give you the steps that you need to craft a resume, and I also give you the prompts that you need to fill in your resume. On top of that, I've designed for you a template that you can use to craft that resume. And this template is that all you have to do, you have to only copy what you've written in the workbook and paste it into the resume template. The first 50 people to purchase this resume are going to receive a free call with me. In this free call, I'll look at your resume and make sure that you're highlighting your skills, you're highlighting your strength, and you're doing it the way that it should be done. So grab yourself this resource and you'll be able to benefit from this added advantage of buying the resource. Details on how to make the purchase are in the show notes of this episode. Chances are you've been looking for a job for quite some time. And while you're looking for a job, it's really very hard to keep fronting and flaunting a positive attitude. So I want to tell you ways in which you could utilize to create a positive attitude as you're searching for your next job. One of the things that you could do is that you could stop. I'm saying could to be kind, but you should stop comparing yourselves to others. Stop comparing yourself to other people. When you compare yourself to other people, you rob yourself of the uniqueness that you possess. Value your own uniqueness. Comparing yourself is not going to take you anywhere, but if you own up to who you are, it builds your confidence. It helps you be more confident as you articulate your skills. Even when you have a skill gap, you'll be able to show what you bring to the table. You'll be able to own up to that skill gap and devise ways to compensate for it as you take up a new role and own up to your uniqueness. The next thing is that stop criticizing yourself. We're usually our own worst critics. Like, we critique ourselves, and by critiquing yourself, you're creating roadblocks that are stopping you from getting where you want to go. So do not critique yourself. Even if you lack a skill, you might compensate for it by the good attitude. You might compensate for it by a can-do attitude. You might compensate it by having the learner's mentality. So do not be your own critic. Do not critique yourself because you lack a skill. You're making yourself feel bad that you lack that skill. So that's why you cannot apply for that job that you want. So apply for the job and front your own best self, and also stop critiquing yourself. And by this, I mean that you could do something like, instead of asking yourself questions like, why me? You should ask yourself questions like, why not me? Let's say if you're applying for a job and you're thinking, why me? Why should I be chosen for this job? Ask yourself the question, why shouldn't I be chosen for this job? That's a good way to start reframing your mind from being your own worst critic to putting yourself first. By putting yourself first, you might mention like, why not me? I have a bachelor's degree in this. I've interned at this organization. I have volunteered in this organization. I have worked for this organization. So you start putting up the things that you're good at instead of looking at your own limitations and your own weaknesses. So the other thing you could do is that you could find yourself a person who is going to cheer you on. Find yourself a cheerleader. Myself, I like to cheer on people. That's one of my strengths. I like to cheer on people as they do different things. I'm a person who will be saying, you can do it. I'm a person who will be encouraging you to get where you want to go. And that's why I'm creating this episode, to tell you that even if you lack a skill, you can compensate for it by having a good attitude towards what you want to do. So find yourself a champion, find yourself a cheerleader. Champions and cheerleaders are the same kind of people. They're the people who will cheer you on. They're the people who will make you see what value you create and what value you possess, irrespective of inadequate skills that you think you have. Then the last point I would like to talk about is mindset. Have a positive mindset. A positive mindset is a mindset whereby you think positive thoughts. I doubt myself sometimes when I'm doing some things. Even when I was applying for jobs, I used to doubt myself and I'm like, but why should I be chosen? But every time that thought would cross my mind, I would interject it by saying, why not me? Why not me? I have this, I've done this, I've done this. Like, I would mention my strength, I've mentioned the things that I've done in the past. I would pull out my win journal and mention those things that I've done. Or on this day when I did this kind of experiment, my bosses said, well done, Faith, excellent job. So why can't I not apply for this job? So I'll reframe my mind in such a way that I'll counterject all those bad thoughts and all those limiting thoughts that would come into my mind. So start by reframing your mind. And by reframing your mind is that every time you have a negative thought, counter it with a positive fact. That's the way to start reframing your mind. So how do you demonstrate a great attitude while looking for a job or towards your employment, to your employers as you execute your job? You demonstrate a great attitude towards your work to your employers by saying yes to new opportunities. If your supervisor or if your boss, in case you've gotten a job, tells you, oh, Mary, I would like you to take up this opportunity. I want you to learn this software. Please say yes. Do not doubt yourself and you're like, oh, but how will I be able to learn that software? Say yes to new opportunities. Say yes to new challenges. This is because we learn best when we are trying new things. We learn best when you're doing the hands-on. So say yes to new opportunities. Don't be afraid to take on new responsibilities. And if you've had previous roles and you've been able to solve all the problems that you've experienced, that means even in this current role, you can be able to solve these problems that you're going to experience along the way. I'm going to give you an example. When I was starting my current job, of course, I got the job and I was excited about it. But in the first week when I met my supervisors and they told me how the experiments would be run and how I would have to do the job, at some point I was very skeptical and I'm like, oh my goodness, how am I going to be able to do this part that I've not done before? But I didn't chicken out and say, okay, I won't take up the opportunity or I won't be able to do that. I started from scratch. I started by reading the kind of work that they wanted me to do. I started by doing the research. I started by talking to people who might have done the same work, like trying to find information and find guidance from people who have been there before. And that's the way I've taken up the new opportunity of trying to do something totally different from what I did for my PhD or what I've done in the past. I'm not scared of the new opportunities because I know in the past I've been able to solve problems and I'm so willing to solve more problems even in this new role. So say yes to new opportunities. The next thing is that I want you to be able to own up to your mistakes. As you take up new opportunities, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to make blunders, you're going to make some mishaps along the way. But take responsibilities and own up to any mistakes that you make. Be honest and be very transparent and be vulnerable. That shows that you have a self-awareness and self-knowledge, that you don't blame others for your problems, but you blame yourself. And by blaming yourself, I don't mean that you put down yourself. I say that you own up your mistakes. Let's say if something has failed and it was you working on it, do not say, oh, it failed because the electricity went off. No. Let's say you're a procurement manager, they've asked you to order item X, but you order item Y. And when the item arrives, they need to use it, but it's item Y. Own up to the mistake of ordering the wrong thing and explain the reason as to why you might have ordered the wrong things. And also, as you own up to your mistake, you find ways to rectify your mistakes. Always, 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 and always embrace ongoing learning. Ongoing learning means that you might learn from observing others. You might learn from taking up new opportunities. You might learn by researching more about that topic. You might learn from an online forum. You might learn from having a mentor. Always and always show a learner's mentality. A learner's mentality is a mentality whereby you're able to keep on learning while you're on job. By learning, you're going to become a better employee. You're going to become a better person in terms of your career. And you're going to show your manager that you're able to learn new things very fast and swiftly. So when opportunities come, you'll be chosen for those opportunities. And while these opportunities are coming, you're building your CV, you're building your resume, and you're building your working experience. And this is going to help you grow as you advance your career. So let's say you found job X that you want to apply for. You look at the job description, you have, let's say, 5 points on the job description, but they require 2 more that you don't have the experience in. So what I would do is that I will sit down and write my cover letter and highlight the skills, the first 5 skills that I have that are needed for the job, and also explain the skill 6 and 7 that I lack. By explaining it, I would say, I lack skill X and Y, but I plan to catch up with skill X and Y by doing this. Alternatively, you could look at what skill X and Y is about and explain that you have an idea about skill X and Y. So what I'm trying to say is that as you apply for your job, be very honest when it comes to writing your cover letter and explain any gaps in skills, in job experience, and anything that you think would undersell you. But as you explain it, position yourself in such a way that you're stating how you plan to gain the knowledge that is required of you to do the job that you're applying for. That way, when your employer or your prospective employer looks at your cover letter, they will be like, oh, John says he lacks skill X, but John has showed me that he's planning to learn skill X by doing ABCD. That is going to show that you have a learner's mentality. It's going to show that you have a can-do attitude, and it's also going to show that you've taken time to research and explain why you lack that skill and how you plan to compensate for it by learning on job. I hope this episode has helped you figure out some things you could do to compensate for a lack of knowledge and also to show that you have what it takes to do the job as you apply for a job or seek out new opportunities. I hope you've learned something from this episode, and if you have, please rate and review wherever you listen to your podcast. Subscribe to this podcast. Share it with your family, friends, and those that you think are interested in career development. Also, follow me on the socials, which is Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. The username is The Frame Solutions. I can't wait to speak to you in the next episode. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.